Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Cryptic Conversations. I'm your host, Tunes from the Crypt, and we have another very special episode in store today. Today's guest is a woman named Maria, also known as Emotional Musings. Maria conducts shamanic healing sessions, providing spiritual support and guidance to those seeking transformation. Maria is also a writer, managing her blog where she shares insights on shamanic practices, holistic healing, and personal growth. She has also authored 6 poetry books showcasing her creativity and self-expression. Maria's journey has been marked by triumph over trauma, and despite facing significant challenges, she advocates for the human experience and believes in healing humanity through poetry and shamanic healing. Maria experienced a profound spiritual awakening in 2019, guiding her towards a more holistic path, and she is also a channel and psychic medium, offering insights and support to those who feel called. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hello.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So for this episode, I wanted to switch things up a little bit, try something new. I've done it in the past, so I'd like to ask you. Let's talk about synchronicities from your perspective. What are they, and have you had any interesting ones lately?
Oh my goodness, I have synchronicities all the time. I feel like synchronicities are your signs and symbols, and I call them like angel winks from the universe that you're meant to follow. They're things that the universe, your guides, want you to pay attention to. And they hold messages, they hold power and, magic, really. If you I always say, keep following the breadcrumbs. Synchronicities are the breadcrumbs.
I love that. I love that answer so much. My whole life has been synchronicities. I feel like I'm a walking synchronicity. I'm always noticing them, and so I kind of wanted to tell you like the interesting one that happened last week. So I come to find that you live in Florida, right? So basically, what happened? So something I keep getting this message like Orlando, like something keeps telling me like Orlando, like that's my next move, like my next chapter in life is going to be in Orlando. And interesting, like you just said about how 2024 is about water, and so we're entering the age of Aquarius and all that, right? So but Orlando keeps calling to me, and I've grown up in Southern California my whole life, Los Angeles, so it's kind of a scary leap of faith for me to do that, to just go move and start a new life over there. But if the signs keep happening, I have no choice. I mean, I'm gonna have to pursue it, But anyways, what happened? So I was watching a podcast, completely unrelated. I'm not sure if you're familiar with any comedians, but Joey Diaz. I like Joey Diaz, and it was like at the end of it, he was on another podcast, and the guy was telling him like, oh, if you're ever in Orlando, like you should come, be on these guys' podcast or whatever. So that was the first sign. It was completely unrelated, like, and that came up. And then the next day in the morning, I'm on my computer, I'm working from home, and like one of our clients, I work for a small marketing company, one of our clients, I completely forgot they had an affiliate chapter in Orlando, and like I got a message. It was like something about Orlando. I was like, all right, at that point, I don't know if I'm looking too far into this or not, or what, but it was interesting, right? So then I'm going for my walk. I walk for like 2 miles every day over here by my house, and I'm going for my walk, and I'm like, you know what? I was talking to God, the universe, my spirit guides, or whatever. I was like, you know what? I don't know if those 2 signs were a stretch or not. I was like, but give me another sign, like give me another sign, and I'll believe it. And so I'm going for my walk. I'm going for my walk. It's about 2 miles. I'm looking, like maybe I'll see something on a truck or something. Nothing. And I was at the end of my 2 mile walk, and this was interesting. I don't know. I was at the end of my walk, and I was getting ready to cross the street. And normally I'm very cautious when I'm going to cross the street and all that, right? Like I'm very cautious, but the car was just far enough. He was coming down the street. He was just far enough where I had enough time to cross the street. So I was like, you know what? Something told me like cross the street. Normally I would have waited and let him pass, right? So, but something told me like, no, cross the street. So I crossed the street. And dude, the guy like sped up and he almost hit me. Like he was mad that I crossed in front of him, but there was plenty of time, and he was being a dick. You know what I mean? Like he was literally purposely trying to hit me. And then I was like, damn, like, and I got mad, and I kind of I cussed at him and like, what the hell, like, watch it or whatever. And then sure enough, I look at the back of his car, and the license plate, Florida. And I live in California, so I don't know if I'm looking too far into this stuff, but I don't know. To me, that was like I asked for a sign, and like that was the last one. And then me and you are coordinating our meeting, this episode. And then sure enough, you're from Florida. So I don't know. I have all these signs about Florida.
So I feel like Florida holds the keys to your path. Something big is going to happen there, specifically Orlando. Are you attached to anyone? Like you're not in a relationship?
No, but my parents, they're getting older, and so it's been kind of like I always want to be here to help take care of them and all that. So it's kind of a tricky situation.
Somebody's waiting for you in Orlando.
Could be, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, like, yes, like I totally feel you on maybe. I think for me, like I am somebody who leaps, who follows. Like I say, I'm compelled by my soul ever since, even before my awakening. I'm a super Sagittarius. I'm a fire sign. I have mostly air and fire in my chart. So I just go. I'm very much a free spirit and I do things. And then I, kind of address the consequences later. So, and I've moved around the country all my life. I mean, I've lived in so many different states. So like you're you're never going to know until you do it. So just do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah, and
that's
then like you can always come back. Like that's,
yeah.
that's how I've always looked at things. Like, and that's what I say to my son. Like,
Mhm.
I'm like your guide now, and I'm just here to support you. And I'm not probably gonna love everything you do, but I'm always gonna love you. And like you just gotta try things in life. If somebody had
Yeah,
told me 5 years ago that I'd be doing what I'm doing now, I would never have believed it.
yeah,
But I just that's part of faith, it's part of trust and like learning more about yourself. And yeah, it's all just part of the journey. So I say go. Why
yeah,
not?
yeah. So
Yeah.
like if I start seeing more and more signs, like my whole life has been that, and I always pursue it. So it's like right now I'm still kind of like I don't know, but if it keeps happening, then I have no choice. I have to, and
Well,
um,
I'm very curious because I feel like as soon as you started talking about this, I got like love interest. Like there's a love interest that you're going to meet somebody there.
wow, yeah, that could be,
Mhm.
and I'm trying to find my tribe, like my tribe of spiritual
Yeah.
people, and I think there's a lot of them out there. Yeah,
Mhm.
okay,
Yeah.
so
And like, here's the thing. It's like you're saying, like, try to. These things just happen. Like, I don't necessarily, it's attraction, not chasing. It's not like I'm going to make anything happen. Like, I don't make my writing happen. It just happens. I don't have to put a lot of effort into it. It's just part of who I am. And when I don't feel it, I don't do it. So, like, honestly, I have channeled over 700 poems since 2018. And I go through periods sometimes where like 10 days, and that's a lot for me to like not write a poem. But then I go to myself, you know what, Maria, like calm down, be human, like enjoy your life, be in the moment. And like, the more I practice those things, the easier it gets. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah, I love that
Yeah.
that concept of channeling. So I guess, in your eyes, what is channeling? Is it God? Is it your spirit guides? Is it your higher self? What is your thoughts on
It's a
channeling?
combination of everything. It's me tapping into a part of me that is my divine self, my God consciousness, that's able to connect to the divine. And so I take these messages and I create them into poetry, and it's very, very easy. I like to say that I feel like I can't take credit for a lot of it because they just come to me.
Yeah.
They literally take minutes. And it's like, so I recently wrote a poem about this. I'm actually going to share it tomorrow on my social media. It's called Charmed Channel. And it's about what goes on for me. Like it feels, I feel kind of like I'm in an in between space, but very alive. And everything is kind of tingly. And I get like scrolling words, almost like when you'd see them like on a light board, like in like Times Square, how like things, words are scrolling. That's kind of how I see them. Sometimes it's very loud and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's more of a feeling and I feel the words. It's interesting because I have, like I say, God set me with all my sense settings on high. And so I have all the clairs. And so it just depends on how that message wants to come through and where I am. Like when I'm at the beach, things come through differently. When I'm in my home, sometimes, depending on the emotion that I'm experiencing, like it's all different. But I didn't, necessarily know that I was a channel until I went through my apprenticeship, and my mentor was like, "I'm going to tell you something. I feel like you don't know this, but you're a channel." And now I'm able to spot other channels. Like we pick up on each other's like frequencies, and I just could spot other channels quickly.
I love
Yep.
it. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, talk to me about your early life. Where did you grow up, and what was your family like?
Well, I grew up in New Jersey. I'm from Bergen County. I grew up like right outside of Manhattan. And my family, I come from a mixed family. So my parents were both married before and had two children each, and then had my sister and I. So there were six of us all together. It was pretty loud. It was pretty dysfunctional. And I went through a lot of trauma. I was sexually abused as a child, and I didn't, speak about that or tell anybody until 2019. Um, I studied to become a professional dancer. That was really a major aspiration of mine. I've wanted to be a dancer and be a writer. And those were like two things that I really wanted to do. I wanted to dance on Broadway. I studied with people that were on Broadway. A lot of people that I danced with are now major professionals, which is cool. But, I feel like I am really a hippie at heart. Like I traveled with the Grateful Dead in high school.
Oh, wow.
I'm really just a free spirit. So ever since I turned 18, I left my home and I haven't looked back. I've had many lifetimes in 46 years.
Oh,
I
yeah.
got married at 22, had my son at 23, my other son at 27. I was married for 12 years. And then I got divorced. And then, I feel like the gift of my desperation, like to really start to inquire about who Maria was, came through a suicide attempt. And that was, in the midst of a divorce. And I really just felt like I was completely unraveling. So all of these things I feel like lead you to an awakening. And I like to say, like, the last like 6 years of my life have made a lot of sense. Like, I've loved turning 40. I love every year that passes now. I'm so much more present in myself. And I feel like all the years prior to that were just super confusing. I caused myself a lot of pain. I went through a lot of pain. Um, and I'm appreciative of that. I'm very grateful for what I've experienced, but I'm in a whole new phase of my life now. Like, this is like the life that I meant to be leading and have, which is helping other people with my innate gifts and sharing poetry. So,
Awesome. That's beautiful, and thank you for sharing, bits about your story. That's tough, man. Suicide, sexual abuse. Um, I'm noticing a couple of interesting connections right there. There's something else that you said. So same for me, actually. My dad had um two relationships before he met my mom and had kids with both of those. So he's got two with one, two with another, and then met my mom and then had me. And then my mom, she was with a guy and she had two kids with him before she met my dad. And so, yeah, kind of a mixed family. And so I can
yeah.
relate. I can relate to how messy things can get sometimes.
They can, but like my siblings and I feel like we really all bonded together because of the things that we experienced. And my older siblings, especially my older sister, is like a pseudo mother to me. And so
mm,
she's always been a very guiding force. We're very
awesome.
similar. We're both Sagittarians. And so, looking back on all of it, like it made life colorful. It
Yeah.
made me who I am. Like it showed me my strength, my resiliency. I also went through many, many years of addiction. I was a blackout drunk from the time I found alcohol, like 15 to, I just celebrated my 3 years a couple days ago, which is the longest period of sobriety I've ever had in my life. So I feel like that's a huge part of it, you know?
Yeah. I can,
Yeah.
I
It's
can
what we
relate.
choose to do with what's happened to us, I
Yeah.
mean, life is like about your attitude and your perception.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I can relate to you on the alcohol as well. I mean, my 20s
yeah.
were just a wild party and lots of blackouts and at some point finally I said, you know what, enough's enough, like, so I'm 31 now, and I was like, enough's
Mhm.
enough. And so I've been sober 2 years now. And
Congratulations.
that's where, yeah, thank you. That's where the healing started, and that's where led me to my awakening. So
Yeah.
your life, kind of reminds me of the quote, religion is for people who are afraid of hell, and spirituality is for people who've already been there. I'm not sure if you heard that.
Well, I have heard that. And when you started saying it, I thought you may say, so I'm not sure who said this. I didn't make it up, but I look at religion like a goldfish in a bowl, and spirituality is the ocean. And so I'm very proud of my upbringing. Both my parents are devout Catholics. I went
Okay.
to Catholic school. I attended church regularly, and I love that part of my ancestry. I come from like a long line of candle lighters and devout Catholics and people who pray. And I use a lot of that within my own practice, although I don't align to any one church, because I feel like God is just all encompassing and it encompasses all religions. And I speak to Buddha, I speak to all of these different deities and goddesses and gods. And so, I feel like it's all relevant. It's not necessarily just one. And I feel like sometimes like there's members of my family that have a hard time with that. They want me to be saved. And I'm like, I have a great relationship with Jesus. Thanks. Like I love the light and I'm doing like, God's work
Yeah.
along with many other people who are just
Yeah.
shining the lights. And really it's just through love. Like that's the power of love,
Yeah.
and kindness. And it's free and it's simple. And
Yeah.
that really is what we're here to do, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, Jesus and Buddha and all of them, like
mhm,
these
mhm.
ascended masters, whatever you want to call them. That's all they were
Yes.
they were teaching is love. Love is the answer. And
Yeah.
at some point down the line, religion kind of I don't know. To me, it kind of keeps this separation. And there's
Yes.
wars over religion. Like my religion's right and yours is wrong, and my God's right. Like look what's happening right now in the Middle East. So I've always labeled myself
Well,
as
it's control,
spiritual.
right? It's control, it's money, it's power, it's all of these things. But really, I mean, human beings, how this whole thing started was through chaos.
Yeah.
So of course there's going to be chaos when there's new things going to be built.
Hmm.
That's the point. Like things have to be destroyed in order to be built better
Yeah.
and stronger. And so all of these things are meant to happen. And people will say, like, well, where's God in this? Well, like we also have free will. So
Yeah.
these are our lessons to learn here
Yeah.
as humans, right? And
Yeah.
so there's many people that want peace. And so it's like, what's going to prevail?
Hmm.
Well, I believe that all of this is just bringing us closer together as a human race,
Oh yeah.
like
Oh yeah.
this is the evolution of humanity.
Yeah.
Nothing has been like this ever. And I'm speaking from like a cosmic standpoint, from like, because I do read cosmic energy and universal messages. And we are coming into more of our multidimensionality in this year more than any other time on the planet.
Hmm.
So we're remembering who we really are. And we're all
Yeah.
psychic beings. We've just been cut off from a lot of that. And a lot of it's like culture, I mean, I love like who I am. And I feel like people like me are leaders. We're meant to be like, hey, we're not the only ones here. Like you have this in you too. It's a muscle. It's something that can be built. Um, and that's it. It's
Yeah.
not something to be afraid of. It's not something to chastise and like call, people weird and all these like stereotypes, which again is like separation. Like I feel like, COVID, for instance, that was an attempt to separate us. But what did it do? It's bringing people closer together and
Yeah. Oh
realizing
yeah.
like who we really are and that we need one another because we're built for community. And
Yeah.
it's like, podcasts like yours and other people that we're talking about like our commonalities more than our differences. For instance, like my partner and I, we could not be more different. And I love that about us because really we're so similar, but we have like the core of our beliefs are what keep us together, but we're different people. And I'm not trying to change him and he's not trying to change me. And I think if more people could adopt that, we would be able to listen to each other and not talk at one another. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely agree. Um,
yeah.
so so in reading your bio, like what life circumstances, I know you touched on it for a second there. So obviously, feel free to share
Uh-huh.
as much or as
Yeah.
little as you feel like talking about, so what circumstances led you to wanting to take your own life?
Well, I felt like I was just completely unraveling. I didn't know who I was. I remember saying to my ex-husband at the time, I don't know who I am anymore. And I don't know if I love you. And I was very, very afraid, watching my mom and her mental health unravel my whole life. I felt like I was becoming her. Um, I just, addiction was like out of control, raging alcoholic. But I had found myself in a relationship with a person that really was like a monster of a human being. And he beat me and abused me, in every which way possible. for months. I mean, thankfully it was a short amount of time, but I really felt like me taking my power back was me. Like, I knew he was going to kill me. I just knew that. I knew that in like the core of my being. And so I thought, well, if you're going to kill me, like, I'm going to kill me. I'm going to take me out of this equation. And, you know, years later in these practices, come to find out that he was, that entire thing happened in a past life with him. Like, I
Oh,
was
wow.
strangled in a past life, and he woke up, I woke up and he was strangling me.
Oh, wow.
And that was, you know, yeah, a lot, a lot to
Yeah.
handle. And then, you know, I just, we had like, we always would get into these like ridiculous, you know, arguments, and it, you know, it was just all over control. And so I took a bottle of Xanax and chased it with some vodka, and he proceeded to beat me up and drop me off at the hospital. And when I woke up, you know, I had somebody standing over me saying, like, you know, you're going to be committed. And that was really the gift of desperation. You know, it was when I started to really hear God's voice.
Mm.
And I shared with people in there, people that I'm still friends with today. Like this one friend of mine, Sarah, like, she was like an angel and like a soul sister. And I opened up to her and I told her what was going on. And she was like, you can't, don't let yourself be a part of that. And
Hmm.
nobody knew. Like, I kept that very, very, you know, private. Nobody knew what was happening to me. My neighbors didn't know, even though they'd call the police and try to like help me. And I would just, I was just in such denial, as at that point I felt like I deserved all that, you know, like, because I had told my ex-husband to leave and take our children, and I was really just isolating myself from everything. But on the flip side, I was at the time, like, I had a raging eating disorder, and I had just done a triathlon. So I was doing all these things and I thought I was like healthy. And I was so not. I was like really just like killing myself. Like, I was doing everything possible to like harm myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and even when I talk about that version of me, it feels just so far away.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
It's wild. But I mean,
Like a
that
different
was a part
person.
of it. I
Yeah.
had to go that, you know, everybody has a bottom. Like, I had to go that deep and that low to really see myself. I mean, and then, you know, as I like, that's when I started, you know, to understand myself, and was in the hospital and on medications and went into recovery. And then I had, you know, at this point I was divorced, met somebody else who I like trauma bonded to, and proceeded to fall into a drug addiction with him.
Oh,
That
man.
was really, really crazy. And parts of that I've never even spoken about because I know it would harm my family. But yeah,
Mm.
like, raging drug addict. Yeah.
Wow, yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, and I'm always able to notice and recognize and realize, like, yeah, just like a lot of people who have these issues in their adult lives, it's obvious, where does this stem from? It stems from childhood, having a rough childhood, or not always, but most of the time, like having that rough childhood. Like when you're a child, man, like it needs to be built on a strong foundation, and when the foundation is weak, then these things tend to happen, as we get older, starts to
I
come out.
feel I feel like, because very much have forgiven my parents, and they only could do what they knew in their own emotional intelligence. And I knew at a young age, you know, like early teens, that I had more emotional intelligence than my parents, which was scary. So, you know, I feel like they did the best they could. Like, they provided for us. We never wanted for anything. I went on vacations, I went out to dinners, like, we had everything. We had all the things. But I feel like, you know, for whatever reason, and my mom will, like, you know, say that she really didn't realize that I was such a sensitive child and how to raise a sensitive child. So for me as a mom, like, I know both of my children are gifted. And that's beautiful for me to be able to guide them in the way that I can, because I know what it's like to be sensitive. You know, I know what it's like to have life be like real loud. And my older son and I are close in that way. And I can talk to him about things and like give him my guidance. And, you know, most of the time he's like, how do you know all this? And then he'll come back and he'll say, wow, mom, you were right. And I never want to be like, yeah, I'm right. It's more like, I'm just trying to help you, you know, let me help you. because
Yeah.
I feel like I didn't have, I had people financially helping me and supporting me in that way, but I didn't have a lot of emotional support and
Hmm.
guidance. And people saying like, Maria, you're intelligent. Like Maria, you know, these things that would have like really filled me. It was more everything from the outside, you know, like be a nice girl, be a pretty girl, like all those things. And I mean, I am so much more than that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. Thanks for sharing. Talk to us about your experience through the psychiatric hospital and
Mm.
your view on Western medicine and mental health.
Well, I feel like I went on medications about 18 months after I had my first son. And I feel like these medications were helpful for a time, but then they really started to just block me from myself and block me from my gifts. And they're just a band-aid. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yep.
there's like the things I do today are holistic, they're based in energy, and energy is the most real thing there is. Like it doesn't lie. It's so powerful.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm really grateful for the hospital that I was in Rhode Island because they were very helpful to me. I was in some great inpatient and outpatient programs that I was able to take advantage of. But then when I moved to Florida and found myself, I had been through a dissociative episode, and I actually wrote about it. It was my first published article in a publication called Sober World in 2016. But this incident happened in 2015, and that hospital was very different than the hospital I was in Rhode Island, which was really unfortunate. Um, I was so much more healed that I knew I didn't belong there, but I could see that the patients in the hospital were so over medicated. They were all asking me like why I was in there. Nobody would look me in the eye. They wouldn't speak to me. I was treated like an animal, and
Wow.
it was terrible. It was really really terrible. It was very traumatic, and not healing at all. It was not a place of healing, and I feel like it's we have to do better. And I feel like that's why
Yeah.
people like me are here, like holistic practices are really, mind, body, spirit, whole body health are really going to bring people to a state of well-being. I feel like the system, is really just sick care. It's just putting band-aids on things because
Yeah.
I believe shamans believe that every dysfunction in your physical reality is based from a soul sickness, and then it just ripples outwards.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I am more healthy than I've ever been in my whole life. Why is that? Well, it's everything I consume, and it's how I treat myself and what I put myself around in all ways, not just like what I like eat. It's energy, it's
Oh yeah.
people, it's
Hmm.
all of these things. And
Yeah.
so, when you love yourself and you care about yourself, you want to do better. And I'm really removed from a lot of these like mainstream, which I consider like matrix like systems. I just want no part of it. I just
Yeah.
want no part of it.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's not for me. It's actually very distracting for me. And I feel like that's the point of that. It's to like take your energy and pull you out of yourself. I don't need anybody, you know what I mean? Like dictating all those things to me and like take this and do. No, I mean, it
Yeah.
was helpful. It was helpful for a time, and then it certainly wasn't. So I'm
Yeah.
not here to ever say like not to be on medication, because I feel like it is helpful for
Hmm.
a time, but I feel like there are other things that are for the long term.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
like you said, it's a band-aid. You gotta, and you said soul sickness. So it's like at the core, you gotta fix the problem, or else you're just
Mhm.
putting a band-aid on it. I would say I'm thankful looking back on my life. I've had a relatively good mental health, but like you were mentioning earlier, I've always been a sensitive person, a sensitive kid, and that's how I've always
Mhm.
labeled myself. I don't know. I'm uncovering my abilities as I get older. I still don't know what to label me. People call me light worker or starseed and different things, and I just
Yeah.
always labeled myself as sensitive. But yeah, I've always had a relatively good mental health until my mid to late 20s. Started to get some anxiety for sure, and I had to stop drinking. But definitely a pivotal moment for me was yeah, getting sober, seeking therapy. And then I went to an ayahuasca retreat, and that was just the cherry on top. And just, I'm a completely different person now. And what I learned in that experience, I got so many downloads from that experience. And what I learned, I was just observing like the indigenous people, like their way of living, you know, the way that they live, they have a profound, deep connection with nature, right? They have,
Mhm.
they're a tribe, they're a community, they're multi-generational, the grandfather, the father, they're all together as a tribe, as a unit. And when you look at America, like we don't have that. Like there's broken families, we don't have a connection with nature. And so I think those are two very important things. Find your tribe, like if you have a great family, that's great. That's awesome. More power to you. If you don't, try and find your family, find your tribe, and find that connection to nature. And I think those are two powerful things that we can do to really, help mental health in the Western world.
I completely agree. I mean, so much of 2020, was me being outside. I mean, I spend a lot of time outside. The sky talks to me a lot. All living things. I mean, now at this stage of where I am, all living things communicate with me. And yeah, I mean, I have friends that I consider like life people. They're in my life for life. Um, I'm really blessed today. I have 5 dogs with my partner, and so, like, we have our own little, like, tribe all the time,
Yeah.
and we recently just being on, a vacation and being away from them, I was like, "Wow, I love my life." Like, I love that I'm so connected to these, like, really special animals and get to do what I'm doing. So, I very much believe in plant medicine. I have not done ayahuasca. I don't know if that's part of my journey. I've said to spirit, if that is something I'm meant to do, then present that opportunity to me. I feel like I would be a great guide for that. That is
Mm.
not how I work as a shaman, though. A lot of people ask me, clients of different kinds of plant medicine, and that is not what I do at all. These are just the gifts that I have innately, and I do use plant medicine. I microdose mushrooms on my own, and I usually take them at night
Oh
and
yeah.
travel the astral realms, and that's how I do that. I am in no way, shape, or form getting high or interested in getting high. And I don't do that with other people. So I feel like ayahuasca and other medicines that are guided through, elders in tribes and whatnot, just, thin the veil for people who may have a more challenging time getting behind the veil. But I feel like naturally, the more that you practice, like, I've been practicing meditation for many, many years. I've been practicing yoga for 20 years. I've been doing breath work for 5 years. Like, all of these practices have brought me more into me. And that is a way of getting high on your own brain chemicals. So these things, you don't necessarily need plant medicine, although I feel like things that come from the ground are the most healing and the most natural. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful. But like, you can, you can have these experiences without these
Without it.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
What'd you say a second ago? You said so you microdose mushrooms and you said you travel to the astral realms?
Yes. So the astral realm is where you go when you fall asleep, when you're like
Yeah, because
in,
I actually I took a
but we're
micro
all dreaming all the time anyway,
yeah.
whether I'm like open eye dreaming here in this reality or in a different dimension, which I really feel like when I'm sleeping, um, I am where I came from. I'm like
Yeah,
with
so
cosmic beings and
it,
galactic beings.
it was on New Year's Eve, I think it was. That was the first time I took mushrooms in years, and this is
Okay.
after ayahuasca, and like I took a tiny, yeah, like a microdose, and I was laying in my
Hmm.
bed, and yeah, so is that
Yeah.
that's how I would describe it. I was like laying there, and I was like, oh, I'm back at that place that I was on ayahuasca. Like I was able to access that
Hmm.
realm, and it was just like even more downloads and like stuff. I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was very strange, and it was like, yeah, there's definitely something with magic mushrooms.
Well, I feel like what begins to happen is the more time that I spent. I mean, because I'm a practicing shaman, so I'm able to tap in with clients, but I spend a lot of time tapped into other dimensions. And so it feels like when I have to go into, which is important, it's important for me to like go into stores and interact, on a 3D level. But like, that's strange for me. Like, that's hilarious. Like, my partner's always like, in my family, like, you laugh a lot, Maria. I do laugh a lot because this is a weird place. It's a very strange place, but I feel like it's the opposite now. It's like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
No,
Because
I
like,
get you.
this is the importance that we put on certain things. We complicate the shit out of life,
Oh
and
yeah.
really, it's just simple. It's you know, I know when my dad passed over. So a few months after I was anointed a shaman, my dad passed over, and I was able, like, I knew about that experience before it even happened, 6 months prior. And that was beautiful because I connected with his spirit before and right after he transitioned. And, I feel like his major lesson for me is patience, is to be like, I'm somebody who, like, I'm very energetic. I have a lot of energy. I like to do a lot of things and be busy. And more, I'm like slowing down in life, being in the moment, just like learning patience and peacefulness. And peacefulness is in the presence. So yeah, I feel like my
Yeah.
life is shifting a lot, especially in the last year.
Wow. That's awesome.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
beautiful.
Thank
So
you.
in your bio, I read that you mentioned at the top of your website, it says triumph over trauma in light and in
Hmm.
shadow, always with love. What does this mean to you specifically, or specifically the in light and in shadow?
Okay, so shamans believe in shadow work, and shadow work is encompassing the pieces of ourselves that we push into the shadows, that we deem as not okay, as ugly, as wrong, all of these things. And really, it's an acceptance of everything, because I need my shadows in order to embrace my light. And I'm all of it. I mean, it's what makes me me. It's beautiful. And without darkness, there isn't light, and without light, there's not darkness. Like, they have to marry. And
Yeah.
so I feel like, that's part of the human experience. It's marrying our ego to our soul. We're never going to transcend our ego. I don't believe that. I believe that it's a marriage, between the two, and everything is done with love. And that's what's really changed everything for me. It's the self-love journey of accepting all of me, and it continues. And I feel like the energy, of the universe, what we experience through the seasons, helps us do this. Like, right now, we're in winter is a
Yeah.
time of rest, it's a time of
Yeah.
reflection.
Yeah.
Summer is like the time of, like, get up and go,
Yeah.
and creativity. And I feel like a lot of things for me are created in the summer and happen in the summer, but like quiet and rest happens in the winter.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's like living by within the moon cycles for
Oh yeah.
me, and living within, the seasonal cycles. And it's
Yeah.
all important. And that's really what healing is. Healing is not linear. It's not follow the dots. It's cyclical. And we
Yeah.
return to things, even things that we think that we've, like, healed. No, now you're meant to go deeper into that thing and look at it with new eyes, because you've healed. So
Oh
you'll,
yeah.
your perception will be different. And so I always say to people, like, well, how clean or dirty is your lens that you're looking through at something?
Wow, yeah, I love that. Yeah, there's definitely a rhythm to this life, to this.
Hmm.
I see it now, especially after ayahuasca. Like, I'll be out in nature, and just when the wind blows, and like it's a whole song and dance. Mother Earth, there's a rhythm to this whole thing, and yeah, you just have to surrender to the rhythm and dance to that rhythm, and that's how you live a good life.
Absolutely. I
Uh,
love that. And then, like, I feel like there are certain things that help me really tap into my soul. Dancing is a huge one, moving my
mm,
body, sound,
hmm.
music. I'm somebody, when I am healing people, I'm a chanter. So I channel through chanting and toning. And quite recently, over the summer, I've started channeling light language, which is like alien speak. Really, it's not human language. But it has a healing power to it. And so I feel like all of these things are an expression of soul. So
Wow.
I totally believe that. I
Yeah.
love that you said that, because that's very much how I feel. I feel like I'm dancing behind the veil. We walk to the beat of our own drums. Like, all of these things are really special and important, and should be valued
Yeah.
and, like, embraced, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was going for my walk today, and I had this thought, and it was just like, yeah, that makes sense. It was like in my 20s, I was in the darkness. And ironically,
Mhm.
I literally was in the darkness. Like I would come out at like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, start pre gaming, start drinking, and then go to a rave or go to a party all the way to like 4 or 5 in the morning. You know, getting all messed up, and then sleep all day. So I was literally in the darkness, and I was in the darkness. And then now it's the opposite. I'm out. Back then I was nocturnal, and now I'm like my rhythm is with the day. And my life has gotten better. And it's like, yeah, it's almost common
It's
sense
very
looking back on it.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's very important. Sunlight, like I always say, my partner's like, Marina, you haven't been to the beach lately. Like, get out in the sun because the sun makes me happy. It does. It feeds my soul. It just said the sun is healing. Why do you think animals like to sit in the sun? Because they
Oh
know,
yeah. Yeah.
like this is where I'm supposed to be. This is where you're getting like all
Yeah.
your nutrients, and it just makes you happy. So I agree because I'm very much I was a night owl for a long time, and now I'm up at like 7 a.m.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
moving about my day.
It's almost common sense. It's like, yeah, duh. Anyway, so what is your view? How would you define a spiritual awakening?
I feel like a spiritual awakening is me remembering my own divinity, remembering where I came from, who I am, my essence. Yeah. And it just continues to evolve and evolve and evolve and evolve. Yeah, and it's so beautiful to be able to connect to something greater than myself. And I've always had a faith in God. I've always been a God-centered person, but I feel like these experiences in the last number of years um, have just proven a whole other spectrum to me, a whole other level. And I know that, for instance, like I've done this in other lifetimes. I am a healer and I am a writer, and I'm here to share these things with other people. So yeah, I feel like this is a mass awakening. It started in 2020, but it's going to continue. Like it's just going to get bigger and bigger. Many more people are remembering who they are.
Yeah, I think that's the major takeaway that I took, or so many takeaways, but the main one is that, yeah, and I always knew it. It always resonated with me and made sense, but definitely the main one, I would say the main takeaway that I took from my awakening is that, we're always told that we have a soul. It's like, no, you are a soul. What you have is a body.
Mm-hmm,
So,
mm-hmm.
so,
Beautiful.
we're spiritual beings going through this human experience,
Yeah,
to learn lessons and that kind of a thing. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I very much agree.
Okay. So when did you become a shaman? You said that was like right before your father passed, right? And
Yes.
and what does it
Well,
mean? What does it mean to be a shaman?
Well, shamans are, original medicine, like the medicine man. We're just conduits for spirit. Um, and I didn't seek out a shaman necessarily. I was like scrolling on Instagram and I found this woman and she was a shaman, and just everything that she was saying about, do you feel stuck? Do you feel anxious? All of these like symptoms I was experiencing, I reached out to her and we had like a phone consultation, which is something that I provide to my clients. And we had a session and that was it. Like she retrieved a piece of my soul and my life has not looked the same since. So she had said to me in, subsequent sessions, like, Maria, you're really gifted. You're really, really powerful.
Mm,
Let me help you hone these gifts. And that's what she does. She's a teacher. And so I took an apprenticeship, the beginning of 2020, I knew I was going to. And then, going through the pandemic, it provided the perfect opportunity to do that. I even ended up living with her for a little while and practicing like master skills, and it's amazing. I'm never not in awe of how spirit communicates, of what I am brought to, what I'm told, and what I share with others, and how it can touch and enlighten their lives. It's beautiful. It's very
yeah.
humbling, and it's a real honor. But it's something I know I've done in many lifetimes. Like when I first started practicing and tapping in, and I was like, "Oh, I've done this before. This is like very, very familiar."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. So, and what has your life been like being a channel and psychic medium? You know, how do these abilities play out in daily life, and how do you want to use them to better humanity?
Um, I use them to help other people connect to themselves. And I feel like, so this is also a boundary too. It's something that, I'm really careful about. I don't just go out in the world and like talk about this with everybody, because it's not everybody's ready for a shaman. Not everybody's ready um, for this type of healing, or want it. There's a lot of people who don't believe in God, and that's fine. We need everybody in this world. Um, yeah, some people are just, more challenged than others, I feel. And I'm just here to just shine my light and spread love and be love. And that's what I'm here to do. So
I love
I
it.
pick
Okay.
and choose my moments, but I don't know. I do a lot of it through humor. I do a lot of it from just being real, just being myself.
Yeah.
Like me sharing a little bit about me, and you're sharing a little bit about you, and like there we go, boom, connection.
Yeah.
And then somebody else can feel a little more normal and a little less crazy, and you know what I mean? All these things. So
Yeah. I love
yeah.
it. I love it. Okay. So what led to the creation of Emotional Musings, and what inspired the name?
Okay. So I feel like in 2018, I had met this person online, and her and I like immediately were messaging each other. She's in Australia. And again, we had found a lot of similarities. And she said, Maria, your messages to me are so lyrical. Like, do you write poetry? And I said, well, I do. But I had that at that point, I had never shared poetry with anyone. And so that actually brought me to an app that I use now. And I started creating poetry. And then she said, you should start a blog. Like, she literally, like Katie, and I don't even speak to her anymore. I feel like she was like an angel that dropped in to like help
Oh
me,
yeah.
inspire me with all
Oh
this.
yeah.
But it really was for me to help people not feel as alone as I always had. Going through all of my challenges, I always wrote. When I was in the hospital, they gave me a journal. I filled that journal. And so I just started sharing my experiences. And I feel like I am musing on emotion. I'm using, emotions as my muse and creating from there. So, I mean, I want my blog to be a book someday. I feel like it's meant to be a book, because if you were to read from like the beginning of
Hmm.
2018 to now, like it's so many changes, and just a guide really
Yeah.
of how to, embrace oneself and move through the healing journey. And yeah, there's a lot of wisdom. I mean, I go back and read posts and I go, wow, wow, Maria, that's good stuff right there. Yeah. And
Okay. So
yeah, I just want to help people. I just want people not to feel alone, and I want to
mhm.
help them.
I love it.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about your books. You have 6 books out, right? Talk to us a little about your books, and how do you create the
So
poems?
I just literally, like, nobody taught me how to do any of these things. Even, going back to the blog, I had no idea what a blog was. I think I Googled like, what's a blog? And then I found myself on WordPress, and I figured out how to build a website. So my first book, Emotional Musings, those poems are very simple. I feel like my writing has definitely evolved as I've become more and more free and more sure of myself. I used to write under the name Lady Sag 77, because I'm a Sagittarius and I was born in 77. So I wrote under that for years. I didn't even use my real name. Um, and then, it evolved to like my soul's language, my heart song, my soul's light, my soul's journey, my soul's dance. The 3 collections that I have yet to publish, because I feel like they're meant to be with a traditional publisher, somebody who could do all of the legwork of marketing and all of those other things that it's hard for a self-publisher to do. Because I just, published through Amazon myself. Those are my soul's music, my soul's inspiration, and my soul's a channel. That's what I'm working on right now. And I just did it. Like, I just did it. I just trial and error. Like, let's see how this looks. Let's see. Like, I literally am just guided. Yeah. I don't really know like how I did them. I just did it.
Yeah, I love that.
I just don't stop. Like I just don't stop. I don't give up on myself. I keep going. Like I said, I'm just compelled by my soul. So I'm very determined to get these things out there. And if somebody's reading them and somebody finds it to be helpful, it's like I don't even have words. It's so beautiful.
That's awesome. Yeah, so I'll definitely put a link to your Amazon store in the description of the video as well.
Yeah.
So what practices do you use for healing and whole body wellness? I guess in regards to like the healing and services that you offer.
Okay. So for me personally, like I mentioned, I've practiced yoga for about 24 years. I do a lot of breath work. A friend of mine facilitates conscious cyclical breath work. I do that regularly. And I use crystals. Like I'm sitting here with a crystal right now. Crystals are all around my home. So crystals and grids, creating grids, it's a big part of my practice. Meditation. I feel like all of this began with yoga and meditation many years ago. Writing, journaling, keeping kind of track of my thoughts and my feelings. That's really big. Being out in nature. I love to exercise. I'm somebody who's done triathlons,
Oh
and
wow.
now I just pretty much stick to swimming and biking. I'm trying not to run as much because I feel like it's kind of getting hectic on my body
Hmm.
as I get into my mid 40s here. So, but so my healing session. So the healing sessions that I provide are in person. I do have an office in my home, but most of my clients and my work is over the phone, and I just use the phone. I don't use a video. I feel like video is very distracting, and all I'm doing is sitting over a crystal grid anyway. So there's not much to like actually see. And I like I say, I read souls. I tap in. I balance the chakra system, and it's an hour long. I
Hmm.
also do card readings, and I'm not like your typical tarot reader. I'm more of an oracle, so I use cards to have a conversation with spirit. I also create energy setting kits for my clients for their homes or for their office. I create energy sprays made out of like essential oils. I do that. What else do I do? I've done like home clearings, which is really fun
Oh,
for
nice.
clients that like have moved into different places. I did one about a year and a half ago that was really awesome because she was moving into a very old home
Oh
on like
yeah.
sacred land. Like, I mean, she lived on like 9 acres of property. And so it was so wild what was there and what had to be kind of negotiated, like within the home and on the land
Oh
for her to like
wow.
live there with her family. Yeah.
What were you
So that was fun.
what were you picking up at the house over there? What were you?
Just a lot of like, okay, so she lives in Connecticut. So this was like a lot of indigenous people.
Mm.
And animals. Like, so there's a barn on the property and stables. And so she and I both knew even when she was buying the home, like I said, oh, you're gonna bring horses there, like there's gonna be animals, like you're gonna resurrect the land, you're gonna be healing the land. So here we go again with like, how nature is always like speaking to us. And whether or not we're listening, it's really important. And so it was messages like that. And then also like spirits that were in the home that needed to go, needed to ascend and be removed and just creating, yeah, like just her own space. And that's really what it is. So we have, this 3D reality that we live within. And with people, we have boundaries, but there needs to be boundaries with spirit as well. If I didn't have boundaries, I wouldn't be able to function. It would be a
Yeah.
constant bombardment.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's been
Yeah.
in my life, I can always pick up energy. Like if there's spirits in a house or something,
Mm-hmm.
I can always pick it up. So I'd like to ask you, so with all of your life lessons and wisdom that you have, what is one message you would like to leave the listeners?
Hmm. I mean, I guess it's just shine your light and be who you are. Like a chant that came to me a couple of years ago when I was rebuilding. I've rebuilt my life many times. My being is freeing. Being who I am is very freeing, and it allows you to be you, and so forth and so on. So, yeah, my being is freeing.
Wow, I love it. Very, very simple, short and sweet. Um,
That's what it's supposed to be. Simple.
yeah. So what plans do you have, and how do you envision the future of your work?
Well, I envision myself sharing my poetry on like a mass level, like in person, on a stage. I've had this vision for quite some time, like, yeah, being on a stage. So I'm a spoken word artist. This past year, I actually was a featured spoken word artist, and I wrote a poem for this foundation. And I find myself, I feel like that's where I'm going with this, to publish, the books that I have yet to publish, and bringing those out to like the world. And then in these spaces, healing people. Because I know that I would be able to pick up on, you know, whomever in the audience who will need like a one-on-one moment, a connection.
Yeah, I love that. I love
Yeah.
that so much. So kind
We're
of close.
bringing it like into more of a group setting.
Yeah. So kind of closing it out, I always like to close the show, have the guest give the listeners a final message of love and healing. But I'm curious if you have a poem that you would like to share.
I do have a poem. I'm going to share one with you that I actually just shared in a session that I had just prior to this. So this is a poem. I feel like, oh boy, give me a second. I don't know if you do any like kind of editing.
No worries.
Okay, I'm sorry because I just literally had this like cued. But anyway, so this poem is a message. I feel like it came to me soon after my dad passed over, but I feel like it's a universal theme for anyone who's seeking healing. It's called "If I Were." If I were the wind, I would carry your imagination to a faraway place, like whispers so often do upon the breeze through the trees. If I were the rain, I would wash away all of your worries and fears so you could only see the beauty that this world has to offer. If I were the sky, I would open myself up wide and invite you to fly wherever your heart desires. If I were the earth, I would plant you firmly into roots grounded in love and compassion. If I were fire, I would crackle and burn passionately inside of a pit, smoldering like in the core of your being that's yearning to express every color you can dream. If I were the sun, I would shine brightly through darkness, reminding you to never give up or let go of hope. If I were the moon, I would glow like a candle, guiding your way back home to my arms. If I were a rainbow, I would always appear when you need to be uplifted and be reminded how precious, cherished, adored, and loved you truly are. If only I could be all of these things and everything, would you believe in yourself like I always have, giving you nothing but love, always and forever? And I feel like that was my dad's like,
Wow.
because he is such a guiding force now for me. And in life, he was very emotionally unavailable. And
Mm.
now in spirit, he's like the dad I always wanted. So,
Wow, that
yeah.
was that was beautiful. That was a great way to end the show. Yeah, I can definitely see you on stages in the near future. So yeah, kind of closing it out. I want to thank you, Maria. Thank you for meeting with me today. Thank you for providing such great stories and wisdom on this episode. I want to thank the listeners for sticking around to the end. So Maria, please tell everyone where to find your information, and I'll also add it to the description of the video.
Okay. So everything I do is under Emotional Musings. That's the name of my website. That's the name of all my handles on all social media, except for Facebook. I don't do Facebook. But I have a YouTube channel, I have TikTok, and I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Pinterest, and those are the platforms that I'm on. And my name is Maria Teresa, so it's Maria Teresa Emotional Musings.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Thank you.